not gonna lie, when it comes to a lot of drone repair centers, they charge insane amounts of money. And I remember where I was working at before, I would look at the prices we were charging people, and I was like, that is insane.
All right, cool. We're good. How's it going, Keanen? What's going on?
Not much, man. Been super, super busy. Been working on a lot of different stuff, whether it's business related, passion projects, whatever it may be. Just getting a lot done now.
Yeah. So you got. Let's. We have a lot to kind of cover because for those that haven't heard us talk yet, we just talk for like hours. So we can go anywhere and everywhere, but. So I think probably the first thing I'd like to start with is talking about like the drone space, because that's how we met. That was that's how we first interacted on Reddit, and you were awesome about just being really helpful, and you didn't have to be, and sending out a like I was in distress, like I sent out a question, and you're like, hey, try this, and this, and like, oh, maybe I can help this way, and I appreciated the extra effort that you were going through when you really didn't have to. So that was really cool. And so ever since then, which was that about a year ago? Maybe not quite that long.
Yeah, less than a year ago. I'd say probably about 9 months or so. It was probably somewhere in like probably earlier mid June, something like that. Because at the time I had just gotten out of the Navy, and I started working for a company and as one of their repair techs slash a logistics specialist as well for them. But I mean my main goal there was to try and help propel the company to be something better. But unfortunately, due to a lot of things at that company, it just seemed like me and my buddies, it seemed like a better idea just to go ahead and leave and do our own thing. But no, like at the time I was probably more active on Reddit than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not normally a repair tech. Can I repair anything? Yeah, if I try, sure. But with drones, I definitely like sunk myself into as much of the technical side as possible. So I was just trying to help anybody on there become a part of the community, show that I can actually be trusted as opposed to some of the people I've been surrounded with back in that sphere at that time. So
yeah, so without going into too much detail of the background, because I don't want to really get into that, I'll just stick to you and me. Yeah, I really wanted to have you on the channel because you were very genuine in how you were trying to help. Yeah. And just to say it, I had a Mavic 3, or I still have a Mavic 3. So those that don't know, I have a Mavic 3. The sensor's broken. I don't know how the sensor got broken, but it was just after care refresh. And of course, because it happens right after you don't have care refresh anymore, your warranty. So I was trying to figure out, is there any way for me to fix this, or is it going to cost me $1 million? So, the fact that I was kind of like, this is my big drone. I know there's ones that cost way more than that, but it cost me $3,000 for the whole kit and caboodle. And so, even spending $500 to get a new sensor, I was worried about that. But yeah, you were really cool about it. Felt like you were just another drone guy that was just reaching out and being like, hey, I know how to do this. Maybe try this or.
Well, that was the thing that I was trying to stress there, is that with any company, nobody likes to be sold to. I'm not just, even though I was working for a company at the time, I wasn't just going to go in there and be like, hey, send it to me, I'll take care of it for you. It makes more sense to, show that you are part of the community, that you do genuinely care about people. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters, is that human connection. Whether you're a corporate entity or not, or a business or not, at the end of the day, everybody just enjoys that human connection. But no, I mean, at the time, I was like, I remember I was like, well, if I can help anybody, then, especially if it means saving them money, what kind of company is going to help somebody save their own money?
Yeah.
Right. So, But no, that's I think that's just how you genuinely make those connections with people.
Well, and you never know either, too. I mean, not that I'm not famous. I'm not like I don't have a huge platform,
Mhm.
but you didn't know who I was at all, and you
Yeah.
didn't know like where like my attentions were. A lot of companies, if they are going to reach out to I don't know, they want to work with social media influencers, which I'm not saying I am, but like people that have any sort of following, they'll look at numbers and they'll be like, oh, yeah, Pete McKinnon. Yeah, of course, we're going to make sure we take care of him. But you were
Yeah.
just genuinely like, you're interested, you want to be part of the community, which we'll get
Yeah.
into with how you're incorporating that in your new business, your own business with your buddies. Um, but that's why I'm on Reddit. That's why I have been on Reddit over Instagram or Facebook or anything else really. So aside from YouTube, it's pretty much Reddit, and it's so that I can communicate and they're my people. You know, we're nerds for
Yeah.
whatever that space is. So like the drone nerds or Photoshop nerds or it's just like mm,
Well, that's what Reddit is. It's
yeah.
communities made by communities. It's the people who are in a Reddit community are very passionate about that particular topic, or at least most of them anyway.
Yeah. Well, they're interested in some level. It's funny.
Yeah.
So I'll say this too. So from a business perspective of a business being in a Reddit community, a subreddit, you have companies that are kind of like the more global corporate entities, and they'll make a comment. It's funny. So I don't want to say who it is, but in a drone a drone subreddit, I've made comments before, and then a certain company will say, "Oh, X, Y, and Z," and "Oh, we're sorry to hear that, and we want to help you out," and blah blah blah, whatever. But it doesn't really feel genuine. And what's
Mhm.
funny is, like, I'm like, "Why are you invading our space? This is our space. Like, don't." The way that they're coming across is more corporate,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "This is supposed to be a group of friends," and it's kind of like, let's say we actually have back in the old days, we used to get together like in spaces, like I mean, still they do like conferences like E3, which I think is dead now. I think I read that today. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but like we used to get together conferences. But if you're doing like a group hangout someplace, like the comic book shop, and all of a sudden this corporate entity walks in, it's almost like a business thing, like not the way that you were doing
Yeah.
business, which was very different. It's like, hey, I'm one of you, and I'm doing this in my business because I'm one of you. Like we're all together
Mhm.
versus the kind of like corporate speak. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, well, I get what you're saying because I'm not because whereas drones are kind of a fairly recent uptake for me within the last few years, right? I haven't been in the space as long as other people, which I readily understand and accept that. I'm learning new stuff all the time, and I think it's just fascinating as far as drones are concerned, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But the when it comes to when it comes to selling, that's where I used to what I used to do prior to the military. I used to do sales, and if you could think of any field, I've probably worked in it, right? The ultimately the I'm a very big person, or I'm a very big believer in if you build it, they will come, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should have to go out and press sales and do stuff like that, because at the end of the day, as long as for example, if whatever you're doing as a business, whether it be selling something or providing a service in any sense of the form, right? Then again, if you build it, they'll come. If it's worthwhile, people will see the value in it and they'll just pop up. Um, but like as far as entities, or especially larger ones, being in the social media sphere of things, right? It can be a little, I'll say, cringe.
Yeah.
um but like, so some people do it right. For example, like Kraft macaroni and cheese, there was a recent one that I saw on Instagram, and it wasn't like super over the top. It didn't have branding all over it. It was just a bowl of mac and cheese, and some dude had noodles on every bit of a fork, and held it up to the fork, and or held it up to the camera and was like, fork, and then did it with a 5-prong fork until he ended up with a rake on screen with noodles on every single beat on every single bit, and it just got more and more wonky throughout it's simple stuff like that that I wish companies would do a little bit more. Like
Yeah.
who was it? Was it Wendy's that went on like a roasting spree or something like that? That
Oh,
one was kind of
they
funny.
roasted the like other companies.
Yeah, I think it was Wendy's. It was a while back. It was a while back. But no, that stuff like that. I wish there'd be more of that.
Yeah, it's that you feel like the person on the other end's a real person.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah. I know what you're talking about. I think it was Wendy's. I remember there was a like the spat between IHOP when they became like they added burgers to the thing. It might have
Mhm.
been at that point, but yeah, that authenticity actually strikes hard right now because I'm on day 18
Mhm.
of the 20 days of authenticity for my channel, which I've really been digging because it's been much more of a free flow consciousness, flow of consciousness,
Yeah.
stream of consciousness conversation from me. So just to kind of like unfilter it, it's still edited, but it's unfiltered to the degree of like I'm not putting the corporate spin or the social media spin on it. I'm just like being myself and letting that out. And that's like you said, people, if you build it, they'll come. Like it's just like a video game. Like you'll know by word of mouth if a video game's good or not.
Yeah.
And like it can live or die on how other people are talking about it. And it's oftentimes
Exactly.
a slower burn for a company to do that word of mouth, but you're building a good foundation at that point so that like my dad, his company, it was, he's 40 years he advertised once. He was very proud of that fact because everything else was word of mouth. And, he was able to, uh, make ends meet, so with that, and that's really impressive, but it's because of that like one-on-one connection. So
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that. Like I haven't been keeping up recently, but I did watch I think the last one of your 20 days of authenticity. I think it was number 12 or 13. I think it was day 13. I need to get caught up again. No, I
I
do
appreciate
it.
it.
No, no, I've just been busy, but I I really do like the level of I mean it's just a really down to earth concept, right? At the end of the day, that's what people tend to bond over. I don't know if you how much of other YouTubers and stuff that you watch, but I've been integrated into YouTube. I've been injecting YouTube straight into my veins since I
Yeah.
was a younger kid. So um there was game theory or no a film theory. I don't know if you know that channel,
Yep.
but they did a video recently about like what is wrong with the way media is nowadays and how YouTube is personalizing content, and it makes it to where content doesn't get out as much as it did, or you're getting you're kind of getting stuck in a bubble, right, with your
Yeah.
content that is being fed to you. And I think that's we're kind of going backwards. We had this we got to this point where it was like everything was if you found out about chocolate rain, you found out because everybody was talking about it, right?
Yeah.
But at some point that got lost, and I feel like it's slowly coming back to where it's starting to become word of mouth again. That's like I mean a few years back, or not a few years now, it's been a while, but do you know a game called Undertale?
It rings a bell, but I haven't played it.
It's okay if you haven't. It's fine. It's an indie game, and
Hmm.
indie games operate like that a lot via the word of mouth.
Yeah.
And Undertale was one of those ones that again, build it and they will come. It was just a phenomenal concept with an amazing story, and it blew up because everybody genuinely loved it. There was something to love there, and I think that's how concept. I think that's the same concept that applies to any kind of content that's made in any different kind of background. So yeah.
Yeah, it's I've noticed as I've gotten older, I've geared more towards the independent games
Mhm.
because it feels like there's more heart, especially nowadays. Back when I was growing up, I'm 40, almost 2,
Mhm.
and I mean, I had the Nintendo and I had Sega, I had Atari, like I had everything from the ground up. And it was, I was just talking to my friend about this, how um, a game used to have to be really good in order for people to start buying it and playing it. And companies would have to like really be on their A game for
Mhm.
that word of mouth to get out. Nowadays, they can hook players and like the microtransactions and everything. And they're trying, I understand from a business perspective, I'm not trying to crap on it, but from a gamer's perspective, it's, I miss the heyday of when games were just like epic because they're like, the tier was up here because you had to be. And so almost every game was even like Mario Brothers, right? Like that wasn't epic, but for the time, it was epic for the type of game that it is. Is the side scroller was fun. It was entertaining. It hit just the right notes, the way that it like, you jump up and hit the box and stuff. And um, it's I miss those days, but independent games have a tendency to have more of that essence in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's or it's either that legitimate authenticity from the creators, eh, or it's a meme.
Yeah.
That's the two reasons that I like indie stuff. It's either very self-aware or it's very genuine.
Yeah.
Um but I mean, again, that can be applied towards, I mean, even like I said, even your 20 days, series that you're doing, that it's the same concept, right? And if it rings out to people, it will. And I know I enjoy it. So,
Well, I appreciate that. So I haven't had an awful lot of well, I shouldn't say this. So I've had some feedback from it,
mhm.
but on YouTube you don't get a lot of comments. You don't, or at least I don't. My wife actually has a
Yeah.
YouTube channel, and she has a different sphere, and she's
Mhm.
also I've noticed. So I'm more of a technical, photography and whatnot. She does kind of like more
Mhm.
book club kind of stuff, and she's now bigger than I am as far as subscribers. But she started only like a year ago, and I haven't really taken mine seriously till about maybe 6 months. Maybe I don't remember exactly. It's fairly recent. Um, but I like her comments explode because the people that she's interacting with, it's like, oh, and I got 50 comments from this video that I just posted 10 minutes ago. And I'm like, wow. But my point is not to compare, but I do have some people. There's one guy in particular that has really been resonating with my
Mhm.
stuff. And I've spoken with him before because he has a channel and he does 3D like
Mhm.
Blender stuff, and like it's really resonated with him, which has helped to kind of propel me and say, yeah, this is resonating with other people. Because like almost every video, I'll have comments from him or some other people too, but most of the stuff up until this point has been like tutorials that I've done. But I've been kind of like, I'll share information. I'm usually answering a question that somebody else has, and I'm like, oh, I can answer this in a video, and rather that way however many people see it will benefit from it, hopefully, rather than just that one person that I talked to on the phone.
Yeah. It's
uh
it like archiving the response to help more people than just them.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I'm glad it's resonated with you. It's honestly been really cathartic
mhm.
for me to help me in my business, because it's the whole point is, I'm building my business as kind of like the solid foundation, which you can definitely relate to. And
Yep.
it's it's helped me to kind of like hyper focus on things, and like each day has been something else. And so actually today you'll see it. I didn't get to finish editing the video before you and I jumped on here, but
Mhm.
it's about 124 and the importance of branding, which also you and I will talk about tomorrow.
Yep.
It happens to be just perfectly timed, and it's helped me to be focused on one topic on
Mhm.
on one day for building my business, rather than being like, oh, this thing and that thing and that thing and that thing, and like having just such a mesh. It's helped me to kind of focus down, which is real nice.
Do you ever struggle, like, have you ever thought that you might be ADHD? I know I am. I was diagnosed at a young age, but I mean, I do that all the time. It's rapid fire thoughts, every direction possible. I can never focus on just one sole thing. So, for example, what you're doing with 20 days with the 20 days series, that's, I know I'd like to give it a shot at one point. I was thinking about that recently. Just the concept of focusing on one particular thing at a time,
Mhm.
because that's not something I get to do often.
So it's funny. Who was it? There's a Dr. K from Healthy Gamer
Mhm.
GG. Some, I can't remember his channel. I'll link it in the description of this video, because he's really good. I like him. He has a channel, and he talks about, he speaks gamer, right? He
Mhm.
was a gamer. He kind of like fell into what gamers do, which is just like way too much gaming, and it consumes the life, and like you're not getting anywhere. But he's actually a psychologist, something like he's a doctorate of something anyway. But anyway, I really like him. Where was I going with this? Oh, ADHD. And he mentioned something. He was going on this thing about ADHD. I've never thought about it for myself.
Mhm.
If I do have it, I'd say it's kind of like lightweight, because I know other people that have it, like what you're talking about. It's like squirrel, keys. Oh my God, there's a light. There's this thing, like it can get crazy. But there were a couple things that I just take as who I am. And he was saying these things, and I was like, wait, do I have it? Like, it was something like forgetting people's names the second that they say it.
Oh my
And
god.
I mean, that's me.
All the
And
time.
one of the things I learned that helps me, but it doesn't solve it, is like if someone says, "Oh, hi, Dave, I'm Tom." I'd be like, "Oh, hi, Tom. Nice to meet you. Good to meet you, Tom."
Yeah.
Like I'll have to say their name. And what's funny is, even like I might know that the guy's name is Tom, but I'm not sure unless you say it too. Like it's like I don't want to.
Yeah.
But just forgetting somebody's name or having that be an issue doesn't mean that it's ADHD. But there was a couple other things. But
Well, I mean, they say that if you say it 3 times, then you're more likely to remember it.
yeah.
It's just I do keep that in my head whenever I meet somebody. I try to just find some random reason to say their name 3 times while I'm interacting with them, or else
Yeah.
it'll be lost to the ether after that. I don't know where it goes.
Yeah. Most people are pretty good with like, I'm going to try to remember your name, but I'm terrible with them. So if I call you, hey, you, and they're like, yeah, me too. And, so, but I wouldn't, the only time that I've had what I would consider kind of like ADHD thoughts would be when work is just stupid and crazy and my mind is chaotic, because
Yeah.
I'm balancing. The job that I left was, I was balancing like 12 plates, the spinning plates, and I'm like,
Mhm.
run over here and like spin that one. Oh, this one's going to fall. I got to run over and spin that one. And so like my mind would just be in chaos all the time, because I'm trying to keep these things all up in the air. And everything was like, I wasn't able to focus on one thing. So like, that's when I felt the most of it. But I think that was just like a normal chaos anxiety mind.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I
so
mean, I get exactly what you're saying, and I'm pretty much the same way. I can never focus on one thing unless it's something I'm genuinely interested in,
yeah.
and I guess kind of bring us full circle, right? Whether it's because I DJ in my spare time, whether it's DJing or producing music or working on my business or working on learning how to repair drones when I first started doing that. It's like all your attention goes into it. It's all you can think about because you're genuinely intrigued, and it scratches that itch in your brain that typically isn't being, it's not receiving any sort of stimulation. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that I realized this. I don't remember if I mentioned it in one of my videos at some point, but I've realized that what I used to think was a weakness of direction
Mhm.
has actually served me very well, because I was going into I think I did. I was talking about being an astronaut and stuff. I was in Civil Air Patrol, and I did the Air Force Auxiliary, and like I've worn so many different hats. that it felt almost like a lack of direction at one point, but
Mhm.
now I can draw on that experience in ways that I never would have thought that I would draw on the even if it's just relating to
Yeah.
other people, you know. And
Yeah.
I think that what you're talking about is very powerful. And if it is ADHD that helps give you that, it actually could be considered a superpower in a way. I mean, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't.
No, no, no. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I like I said I've earlier that I've worked in any field that you can probably think of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, except for like any college-based one that requires me to, perform any kind of surgery. But no, I mean, I was as far as careers, I was a manager at Papa John's first, then manager at Starbucks, and then left those, started working at a glass shop. So I was a glazer for a while, installing windows and glass showers and stuff. And then I left that and went to highway construction. I did that for a while, and then left there, went and worked at the Men's Warehouse corporate office for a bit, and then did sales for a while after that, and then joined the Navy, and now I'm here and suddenly a business owner taking part in a phenomenal undertaking with two of my best friends who I consider family, who are also helping me direct this company because God knows I wouldn't be able to do it by myself. So thank you, Eric. Eric is my lifesaver. I that man, because I'm constantly rapid fire, right? Everything that
Yeah.
I do, I want to do it now, and I get very excited, and I'm ready to do it right now. Whereas he's very slow and methodical, so he balances me out very well. Like if I need to amp him up to get stuff going, I'm there to do that. But if he needs to slow me down to make me think about stuff and process it more, then I mean, he's like my perfect other half in that sense. And then we
Yeah.
got my buddy Deshaun, who I mean, he's right in between, so he's good too.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that. This is a good segue. I was thinking about segueing over to this, so that you did it perfectly already. So let's talk about what it is that you're doing for your business. What is it? What does it mean to you? Like, what do
Yeah,
you? Yeah, just rap about it.
I mean, so one of the things I was seeing is that there's nobody doing on a scale that necessarily can help people, right? Because again, like we were talking about earlier, that sense of being genuine, when you're interacting with people. But uh, with all of our different backgrounds between me, Eric, and Deshaun, we've really wanted to create a business that can assist with doing repairs, right? That was the main thing that we were doing from the get go. We wanted to focus on repairs for all electronics, but we're focusing mostly on drones right now. We still do like phones, computers, consoles, stuff like that. Any electronic, we could do it. But there's nobody out there, like in your scenario, your drone got broken and there wasn't really anywhere that you could go. So you took to Reddit, whether it be because somebody wasn't readily available to repair it or because you wanted to save money, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to lie. When it comes to a lot of drone repair centers, they charge insane amounts of money. And I remember where I was working at before, I would look at the prices we were charging people and I was like, that is insane. That's crazy, and I can't talk about it too much more than that. But
Yeah.
no, we wanted to provide an affordable service for people because drones are exploding everywhere, and we're in Minnesota, right? And we're right near Minneapolis, so middle of the city. Many different job fields are starting to take on this idea of, oh, we can use these unmanned drones to perform jobs that people typically used to have to do, and it could be dangerous, like building inspectors, for example. Or I've seen companies utilize them for go like inspecting cell phone towers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's drones that are more geared towards like police and firefighters, and just all these different job fields are really starting to embrace this technology. And again, there's nobody who can help fix these things. So that's what we wanted to do. Our idea is to expand and get to a point where we have at least one repair center in every state. but then slowly expand from there, almost like an auto zone, you know?
Yeah.
You don't want to just be able to go to somebody to get like I have a Tesla. I don't want to just be able to go to Tesla. Ideally in the future, right? When my warranty is done and I can't have Tesla do it for cheap anymore, then I'd like to take it to, Mr. Bob down the road who learned how to repair Teslas, you know, and be able to get it done for cheaper, right? It's that aftermarket thing, right? So ideally, not just working with DJI drones, but I know there's other companies out there like Autel and XAG, stuff like that. So, um, being able to expand those horizons later on. That said, we started selling drones as well. Considering that I'm a salesperson at heart, that's I know how to do that. I know the gift of the gap. Um, but no, it's that's been cool as well because I've been able to actually choose who I hire, and I have people who are working with me on this company on the sales end, and they're all over the US. Most of them are ex-military like me, people that I spent lots and lots of time with that I wanted to provide them that opportunity first and foremost. But I mean, these are ex-mil. These are people who very easily could have ended up like me. And if it weren't for Eric and Deshaun, I would have been homeless coming out of the Navy, right?
Mm.
So, and I was homeless before I went in. So, I like the fact that I'm able to provide that opportunity to people, and I'm able to pay them pretty well for it too. Because I did sales for a long time. I will be, excuse my language, but I'll be damned if I don't have my people get paid well. So
I think that's very critical and so overlooked, especially by bigger companies, is the sales staff, or not even sales staff, but just like the your employees not getting compensated well. And I understand from like a business perspective, like every dollar ends up counting, and like
yep.
y- me, who's the employee, might feel like I should get paid more, but like
Mhm.
they're maybe the bosses are only like their margin is like this as it is, and so they have to pay me. So but it's that communication of like, hey, so if I can't pay you this much, then I have to change my business model somehow, whatever. So it's, but
Yeah.
I like that from the ground up you have that mentality of
Yeah.
providing a good um means for your employees, especially because you've been there. You've been, like you said, you've been homeless, and you would have been homeless if it wasn't for your guys there. So kind of paying it forward, that's really cool. And I feel like keeping that and keeping your genuine nature of like outreach and like what we were talking about earlier on Reddit, I feel like that's such a good recipe for success, especially because if your people kind of enjoy working for you and they kind of, I don't want to say drink the Kool-Aid, but you know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
actually like involved in what's going on. If they're feeling taken care of, then they'll pull that apple cart just as hard as it needs to get pulled.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a big thing as well because I know back when I pretty much every company, right? There's a level of value that everyone brings to the team, right? And a lot of people tend to lose sight of that, and people become a number at that point, right? And when it came to this, like I said, I wanted to make sure people were being paid well, people were getting good service, because at the end of the day, again, that mentality of if you build it, they will come, right? If people are receiving a good service, then they're more likely to work with you and stick around. If people if you take care of your people, whether it be a customer or an employee, then you can build that network, that understanding with people that you're there to help them, you're there to work with them, as opposed to just, you know, seeing them as a wallet or seeing them as a few extra dollars in your bank account. I i think there's a major difference between good business and greed. There very much is, but that's
Mm-hmm.
just, I feel like that's lost on some people at times.
Yeah, I haven't made any. I don't want to be a broken record about this. People have heard me, but this is the biggest reason why I'm having an issue with DJI was the Mavic 3 debacle. That's what I call it anyway. So I'm not going to get too much into it, but the SDK is not released for the Mavic 3. We expected it to be. They're releasing it for newer drones, but they don't want to. At least it feels like they don't want to release it because it's going to bite into their bottom line for their Mavic 3 enterprise level stuff. But people like me that bought into the system and were supporting them ahead of time, it's basically like I didn't pre-order it, but it's like pre-ordering a game and then it's trash when it comes out. I'm not saying that the Mavic 3 was trash,
Yeah.
but you don't get what you expected. And up until that time, all their drones would get the SDK after maybe a year or so. But it's been out for years now, and the Mavic 3 has not gotten the SDK. And honestly, it would be such a beast if it did, but I don't use it nearly as much. There's so many times where I pull out the Mini 2 because I can do mapping. And I don't even mean like 3D modeling mapping. Like the stuff that I do is kind of progression shots, and I just need a good overall progression. And so the Mini 2 is totally fine, especially if I put it in raw mode, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and so for the types of things that I'm doing, so it's made me use the Mavic 3 less. So I haven't fixed that sensor because it hasn't needed to be fixed. I mean, I can still fly it, but it's one of those like I don't use the damn thing anyway. So why should I invest any more money in it? And I want to fly it, but I'm just sour on it because that greed, that's the perception from my perspective is that it was a greed grab. And in Reddit, a certain company, well, DJI responded to somebody else's comment of, because someone asked like, oh, SDK, whatever. And I kind of said something and I was very nice. I was very polite. And they had responded to the other person, kind of like, oh, let us know, blah, blah, blah. And I had responded with, oh, just this is XYZ. This has been my experience and so on and so forth. And I'm curious. Like, I really wasn't attacking. I was trying to be very positive about it because you and I have talked about it, but like, you never know what's going on in the back end. And I just want to be wrong, like my perception to be wrong. I would rather have them say, oh, we screwed up and we can't put an SDK on it because the chip is a bad chip or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
And but I feel like that. So I don't want to invest in it in Mavic anymore, in DJI anymore.
Yeah.
But and that's also one of those things where it's kind of like a big company, a big game company makes me look at independent companies now more. So I've been more interested, like the other company that you were working for, I hadn't heard of them before you reached out. And I was like, you know what, even if it costs me more for this company to do it, I'd rather have them have the money than DJI because of my perception of it. So that anyway, that's my I'll get
No,
off my
I
soapbox, but
no. I mean, you bring up very solid points, and I mean, of course, I can't speak for anything DJ on the DJI side. I mean, as far as my interactions with them, because I know people more on the back end, I guess. That because we're partnered with them, for example, right? As far as I understand, they've been. I mean, of course, I can't speak to the SDK thing. I'll never be able to do that, unfortunately. I wish I had something I could say.
yeah.
But I mean, no, like, for example, when it comes to repairs, because there are a few things that even we can't do, right? Because every company, especially when it comes to like warranty stuff, for example, like say you smash your drone into a tree and it wasn't your fault for some reason, maybe it kind of freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
Then they've always been really good on the uptake when it comes to that, and most of the time uh it's normally me having to talk to them on the back end because at times I can get a response faster than some other people would. But no, like I get where you're coming from, and I can understand the frustration from there. Like there are plenty of other drone companies that I talk to as well. Maybe they're not like not necessarily making their own drones, if not now or in the future, but just anywhere in I I guess anywhere in I always use the word sphere, but just like the drone sphere, like the bubble for drones, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I always think that with with a good bit of competition, it always propels people to have to innovate, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
have to be better. And that's not necessarily directed towards anyone, but um, who knows? Who knows what could be the Apple of drones in the next week, the next month. But as of right now, I won't lie. DJI does have a pretty solid spot in being the Apple of the drone world right
Oh,
now. I've
yeah.
worked with
Actually,
so many different drones, and man, some of the drone models out there, that's like I told the guys and they agree with me. I will never, ever, ever for our company sell a product that I don't firmly enjoy flying, because I have flown some bad drone models. And I will say I do. That's one thing I got to give to DJI no matter what, is that their drones are easy to fly. Like, you get it, it works right out the box.
oh yeah.
There's some drones that are nothing like that.
No, it's so simple, and the user interface is really good, and they've changed stuff around. And I know some people that have flown other pro things, like kind of the older ones that you had, I don't remember what it was, but like they'll talk about how like the DJI Fly app, which is a newer app versus, I don't remember what it used to be called. You'd probably remember, but
The DJI, was it? No, it's not Go. Is it? Is it Go?
it
Am I
had a
thinking of
Go,
that
but
wrong?
there was like, so they had different apps for different stuff, and
Yeah.
I had a different app when the Mavic 3 came out originally, and then the DJI Fly app, they kind of like really made robust and said, okay, we're going to use like all the consumer drones.
Yeah.
And I really like it. It's smooth. It is the Apple of the sky.
Yeah.
And like I can't hit on them for that. Like, it's smooth. Like, flying the Mavic 3 is nice. It's real nice. It is fun to fly. It, even if I'm not using it from like I'm filming perspective. Like, when I was a little kid, all I wanted was a remote control car, and it's like that, but in vertical space. It's so much fun. Like the man, you put it in sport mode, it's gone.
Right?
And like it
Oh
can,
man.
and especially if you put it in FPV mode too, and the viewfinder or the camera, like, it'll do the turns, and so you feel like you're in an F-16. I haven't flown anything other than DJI, but man, I've had a good time with it. It's just that one sour grape that I chewed. So
Yeah.
and that's not enough to ruin the whole thing. That's just, you said something that kind of like picked the scab, and you didn't mean to.
No. It's all good. I mean, people are always allowed to voice their opinions, but I know, because I have we're not at the point where we can focus solely on the company yet. Like, I can't quit my job right now.
Yeah.
So right now we're still we still, for example, I still have a full-time job that I'm working on, as well as working on all this other crap at the same time.
Yeah.
And then my business over here, which is, it's all very fun. It's been a great time working on everything. But the uh the place where I work, I I'm right next to where all of the DJI consumer models are at.
Mm-hmm.
And you know the people who are there, they don't necessarily know anything about drones, so I always have to speak up and give some insight to the people who are looking at them. And I gotta say, like, have you gotten your hands on the Mini 4 yet?
No.
Oh,
Is it
I love
nice?
it. It's
Yeah.
nice. It's really nice. If I because I've only got my hands on it twice, because I know the guys that go in there and they look at the displays and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I've gotten to take a look at it. I've gotten to fly one once. But oh man, I need one bad.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
I've had such a bad case of gas for a long time.
Mhm.
Gear acquisition syndrome, for those who don't know. That I've been fighting against that. I've been trying to do my very best not to get into it. And so like I haven't been looking up the specs. I haven't really been staying on top of like the newer drones and what's going on. I know that they're always releasing new ones, but
Mhm.
I'm doing it intentionally because as soon as like, oh, the Mavic, the Mini 4 Pro, it has this and that, and like, oh, it can fly, like, oh, it's got a whatever sensor, and then like I start geeking out over it, and the next thing, like, it's
Next thing you
so
know, you just bought it.
yeah, and so I have the Mini 2, and I have the Mavic 3, and those do what I need, and I don't pull them out every day. You know, it's like I could spend that money on some other stuff, especially what actually is a good thing is I live within Class D airspace. So
Ooh,
I
okay.
can't just pop my drone up in my backyard, which is very frustrating because it would be awesome to just be able to pop it up and grab some good shots, like sun shots. I have some cool landscape around me, but
Yeah.
because I'm within that Class D airspace, I can't take off. So it makes the drones less useful for me. So I'm less apt to actually go out and
Mhm.
buy something else,
Yeah,
you know?
that I can see where that would put a damper on being able to fly your drone, because then you got to relocate in order to be able to use it whenever you want.
Yeah.
But
So I have to drive
yeah,
about 20 minutes away before I can take off. So,
holy, that's
yeah.
crazy. I know, which is it's wild because I know that you're really big into photography, and you
Hmm.
know I can imagine you know quite a bit about videography as well in some aspects, right? Especially since you do your own content.
Yeah.
But I know that would be a big blow, especially because I was just about to say that I think one of my favorite drones to get my hands on at all has been the Inspire 3. The Inspire 3 was just so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my god. But
I,
that's like a professional camera based drone, you know?
yeah. Well, I remember that thing is sexy. The Inspire
Oh yeah.
series, like it
Oh yeah.
converts, you know, and you're talking about professional camera stuff. The reason why I got the Mavic 3,
Mhm.
it was, I think it was the lowest level drone that you could control the aperture. um,
Yeah.
and being able to control the aperture, understanding how to do that and everything as a photographer, that gives you so much more power over what the shot looks like.
Mhm.
And being able to adjust the shutter speed because your aperture is set and you don't have to get, and this is depending on what's going on, you don't have to land it and put an ND filter on because it's too bright. You know, like maybe you're doing nadir shots, even just down. Um, there are times where it's too bright unless you like kick that shutter speed way high up, but then based off of what your video is, you want to you don't want your shutter speed to be too high. So like having that control over the aperture is so good. And the camera on the Mavic 3 is just incredible. But yeah, so it is that was a big disappointment that I live just within that zone. And
Yeah.
I mean, I could get out of it fairly quickly, but there's no place that I can actually take off from around here unless I'm like, because public parks, we're not allowed to. According to
Yep.
some parks, you can, but in our city, we're not allowed to. It's in their regulations. And then so it's like I could go on the side of the road, but then that's a little awkward, and I don't know, you know. And so, um,
And I didn't notice it, but the last time I spoke to you, we talked briefly about getting like the part 107 and everything,
mhm.
because me and my guys, we have ours. But I didn't notice it, but I did actually watch one of your videos well before I ever even spoke to you on Reddit. I went back in my history to check from that time after we had that talk. I was gonna bring it up during this for sure, but I ended up watching one of your videos
Really,
about it. It was in my history
that's
from
cool.
way back in like June time frame. It was pretty cool.
Was it one of the part 107 ones?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I was just Googling it as much as I could at the time.
Yeah, that
So,
was the thing. So my first part 107, which is the study guide,
yeah.
and going through my experience doing the test and what the test entails and like the types of questions and like kind of going through and like helping people understand some of this stuff. It's funny. I was just watching them recently just because I like to review my stuff periodically to see how my style has changed and how my not just my delivery, but it's funny because that was the first video, and kind of like I had been doing like these one-off videos here and there, like every 6 months or 3 months or whatever it was. And so I didn't really have a defined style. And I looked back at those videos actually like a week or two ago. Yeah, it was last week. And I was like, oh, this is painful to watch. And not that it's bad, but I shouldn't say painful to watch, but it just like, I see the back end of it, and like even this microphone, I was using this, but the way that this, like whenever I put my hand down on the desk, like it would reverberate up through, and like, so I came up with a solution for that. I Mickey Moused some sound panels, and like, so now I can bang on this desk as much as I want. It's not going to reverberate. Anyway, that's really crazy that you saw that. It's a very small world.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, the main reason I brought up the 107 is because you were talking about like being Class D airspace, and you know, the anyone with a Part 107, you know, you have to know all the technical stuff behind that as well. But also, I was on an aircraft carrier, so I knew a little bit of it prior, which kind of helped.
Yeah,
But
what was it that you were doing in the Navy?
so I was actually a logistics specialist, but in every aspect, when you're in the Navy, you do kind of have to be a jack of all trades, right? You have to kind of know a little bit about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a couple of buddies who worked up on the flight deck, because I wasn't up on the flight deck often unless we were bringing like material on board the ship, you know, if we were bringing supplies on, um, which, mind you, it's roughly 5,000 people on an aircraft carrier, so that's a lot of supplies.
Yeah.
But the no, I had quite a few guys who worked on the flight deck with the birds, because there was a point in my naval career where I was working specifically with the supply side for the air crew. So they would teach me a whole bunch of stuff and talk to me about what it's like up there, and I would go up there sometimes to see what it was like. I probably have some footage somewhere somewhere deep in my phone or on like Google Drive or something, who knows. um but no, I won't speak too much about the military, but um yeah, it was an experience. That's the best way I can sum up my time in the military. It was an
Yeah.
experience.
I honestly feel like, so I was in Civil Air Patrol, which is the Air Force Auxiliary. It's a volunteer thing. It's a search and rescue
Oh, that's cool.
department. So, and so I would go through certain levels of, I called it our basic training. It was leadership encampment. And so I went on an Air Force base. We actually did all of our meetings every week. We would go and we'd have the BDUs, we'd have the everything, right? So, but I went to a different Air Force base and did quote unquote basic training. And, you know, they wake us up in the morning with trash cans, and, you know, like you have to get out into the hallway and they're screaming at you, and you got to go do PT right away, and, you know, but make your bed, and like, you know, hospital corners, and like everything had to be perfect. So, but the fact that I actually look fondly at that, because that helped kind of develop me who I was, even though it was just a week. We didn't do weapons training. We never fired weapons, but our thing was kind of the stuff that you see in the movies of, like, you know, doing 10,000 push-ups and, like, you know, licking the dirt kind of stuff, you know?
So like the definitely not what it is now, right? But back then, like even when I was there, just the standard boot camp experience is what I would call it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it like we had to take 30-second showers. You know, it's like, well, you got to throw the shampoo in your hair before you get into the shower, because you're just in this constant line. And then going to get chow and everything. And like that, I feel like everybody could get some sort of value from military service. You know, and it gives you that perspective, even if the only perspective that you get from it is like, this sucks, I really appreciate my civilian life, because it's like you get to wake up when you want to wake up. I mean, you have work or whatever, but like you don't have someone clanging stuff at 4 o'clock in the morning at you. Maybe, I mean, kids are crazy, but like so.
Well, I mean, if I may, because I agree. Like, don't get me wrong, I got plenty from my military service. Right, I was homeless before that,
Mhm.
and I learned a lot. But I think I got what I needed to from my military service probably about 2, 3 years in. And by the time I got done with that, because I had a 5 year contract, I was just waiting for the last 2 years to hurry up and end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So for me, it was volunteer, so I could leave any day I want. I just tell them, "Hey guys, I'm not coming in anymore," and it's like, okay.
yeah.
But and I was also I was only going to I don't even remember what we call them, but I'll call them meetings once a week. But then we do other trainings, and like I learned how to fly, like as a pilot. I was only a couple lessons away, honestly, from getting my pilot's license.
Oh, wow.
But then the Kosovo crisis hit, and so all non-essential
Mm,
aircraft were grounded. So I couldn't finish my pilot's license, unfortunately. But I think that's why the 107 I took so easily. I don't want to say easily to it, but it made sense because I'd experienced it from a pilot's perspective.
yeah.
I mean, that was decades ago, so it's I was
I
rusty on it, but
I wish I could get more experience with the more in-depth side of the 107. Like, I wish I could fly more often, right? I
mm-hmm.
wish I could put that knowledge into practice because I had to drill it in my head in order to even pass my 107, of course.
Yeah.
But I wish I could go over those bits of knowledge a bit more frequently
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like there's some stuff that I'm like even now after just, maybe 6 months, I feel like I've kind of forgotten some stuff, which happens over time if you don't
Yeah.
consistently practice. But like I haven't flown in a little bit, which sucks. But no, I was actually gonna say the search and rescue initiative that you were talking about. I would like your opinion on that because one of the drones that we are actually gonna start working with has it's got a thermal camera on it. And I know that that could be beneficial for people in areas where it snows and, maybe people go skiing and they go missing during like an avalanche or something. It could potentially be beneficial in tons of different scenarios. What would you think about the applications of that?
Oh,
Utilizing thermal drone technology.
yeah. Firefighters do that now,
Yeah.
not just for thermal imaging and cops do too, but
Mhm.
not just for fighting fires, but a lot of times firemen are the first responders
Mhm.
to like an area, and it's like, oh, there's a kid lost in the woods. We got to be able to find them. So um, any of the first responder units typically they usually have the thermal anyway, so they'll be the ones called. But yeah, so there are it depending on what the people are wearing. If they have
Mhm.
like a really good thermal jacket on, you might not be able to see them too well. But yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. With search and rescue, I wish that we had thermal drones. I wish we had drones back when I was going. I had to learn how to fly because that's how we would do stuff. We would actually like jump in a Cessna and we'd have guys like looking. We'd have ground teams,
Mhm.
but we also had air teams that would actually physically look for any damage of like, planes that crashed and no one was around to hear it. No, absolutely. Thermal. I love thermal. I haven't gotten my hands on thermals, but I've been studying them. Um,
Yeah.
Before I got my Part 107, one of the things I wanted was a thermal drone. I love the concept of it. I love what it can do, like seeing people through canopies of forest. Through the trees, the leaves is really hard, but when it's not, if you're talking about wintertime, you have the cold backdrop against the
Yep.
warm body, which helps number one. And then if they're in the woods, you don't have the leaves, so you don't have to burn through that. Um, what's the resolution on the camera, on the thermal camera?
Oh man. Let me actually pull up the specs. I got it all right here. Give
Okay,
me a second.
yeah, because the,
we
the thermal cameras are much lower resolution than a regular RGB camera. You can get
Yeah.
4K RGB cameras, like the Mini 2 has a 4K RGB camera. Um, and 4K is what, 3820 by 2160, 38 something like that. And the highest definition thermal camera I think is 640,
Hmm.
640
I
by 312, 640 by, I can't quite remember, but
pretty yeah. I'm pretty much at the same place right now because I know we're about to receive more in-depth training on all the specs for it because I just recently got us in touch with these guys.
is it FLIR?
Um, I believe so. Yes.
FLIR has a thermal certification program, and from what I understand, because I was looking at it, it was a couple grand, I think, or $1,200 maybe. Um, because I still want to get a thermal drone, and I want to do roofing inspections, and
Oh yeah. I mean, it's got tons of application for sure.
I've been doing research. I've been looking at scientific papers to try to. One of the things that's near and dear to me is forest conservation. So
Hmm.
like the forest health, and I'm trying to see. I'm reading these scientific papers to see where thermal imagery might actually help um, with the forest health. So far, most of it has been um, more agricultural stuff, like the multispectral.
Yeah.
And when they talk about forest health with thermal, there's the the signs of life, like are there bears and squirrels and that kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
I know that they've used thermal for like ground thermal for like scanning like tree trunks and things like that, and you're able to see some of the health based off of how like around damaged spots on trees. But I don't know if you've ever read scientific papers. What are they called? Abstracts. But
No,
they're
I haven't.
they're very involved because it's basically like a research paper, and they get titles on them that's not like thermal imagery helps save trees. Like it's not like that. It's like a paragraph for the text of the title, um, and it's really involved. But it if you speak science, which I only kind of speak it, um,
I mean, same here. Like, don't get me wrong. I love learning anything I possibly can if it's scientific in any aspect. But
yeah.
my sometimes my acorn brain can only hold so much information at any given time, or else it's gonna have to boot something out.
Well, it's funny. So my wife went to school for geophysics. So like
Oh,
for
okay.
her, the title makes sense, and because she used to have to write abstracts, and which are just basically research. I'm sure there's a better definition than what I'm about to give for an abstract, but
Mhm.
for the lay guy, it's basically a scientific paper that gives you some information on something, and it has the resources. It's kind of like a research paper, so you have the stuff cited, and it usually will have graphs and whatnot. But
Also, real quick,
oh
I'm
yeah, go for it.
sorry, I just found it. So, as far as the specs for the thermal, resolution is 640 by 512.
512, yeah.
It's got it's 40 millimeters as well, but the wide on it is 24 millimeter, and the zoom is 162 millimeter.
162, yeah, okay. um
Yeah,
so the 40 mil, is that what the spectral the thermal?
that's for the thermal. Yeah.
Okay, that's actually pretty good. 25 is, for other people that don't know, the wide angle of 25 is really good for like certain shots. All the other two are RGB, right? They're just a standard camera.
They yeah, pretty much mechanical shutter 20
Oh, it's
20
mechanical.
MP. So yeah,
That's
it, it's a decent DJI camera, right? I mean, you
yeah.
can't go wrong with their cameras. So
Yeah, that's having it be mechanical is very helpful though, because most
right.
of them are rolling shutter. They're electronic. Um, are you able to tell me what the name of the drone is or no?
Uh, I mean, they're just the thermal and the Enterprise. I can get you that information later, though, for sure.
Okay.
But it's part of the Mavic series.
Oh,
It's just
is it the Mavic
it's
3
the
thermal and the
Enterprise
Mavic
drones.
3?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's the enterprise version of those.
Yeah, yeah. So
But
yeah, they came out with the Enterprise. Wait, the thermal has a mechanical shutter.
no, not the thermal one. The other one, which is
Mavic 3
the and
Enterprise.
yeah,
Yeah,
the enterprise one has the mechanical and
yeah.
the
That's great for mapping. I got a buddy of mine that he also has a YouTube channel, Rich Charpentier. I don't think I ever pronounced that properly, but he's got the Mavic 3 Enterprise, and they're all everything. Well, I shouldn't say everything. They have 3 Enterprise level drones. They have the Enterprise Thermal and Multispectral, um,
yes.
and
I know we work with the multispectral because we currently just sell the agriculture products.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, as far as the multispectral, that one is so cool. Like, I didn't fully understand the applications of that drone until my buddy Eric, who understands the software side of all of this way more than I ever could.
yeah.
um, but he showed me that apparently you can use the mapping, and with the multispectral, since it like records the different wavelengths of light, it you can tell the health of your crop based off the color alone,
I think
which
it's
kind of like blew my
NS
mind.
NSDI. Is that what it's called? NSVI.
I
SV.
believe
Yeah,
so.
it's
I
something like that. Yeah, yeah, it's cool. Do you guys have? Would you be willing to share? And we don't have to put it here. I'm curious for
Yeah.
myself. Do you have any sample photos or video with multispectral that you could share, or no?
We don't have any readily available right now. That's actually something that we're going to talk about with you
Ah,
very soon.
okay,
So
okay,
we're gonna see about getting that stuff together. I like I said, any of the social media stuff, any of the media stuff, that's not my forte. I
yeah,
just like, don't get me wrong, I all of us who are involved in the business, we've at some point or another run some sort of Twitch, YouTube, etc., etc.
yeah.
But I'm I'm kind of old man. I'm very old brained when it comes to this kind of stuff pretty often. So
I'm
I leave that to Deshaun and Eric.
okay. It's funny. So you and I will talk tomorrow about the business end of things, but um,
I
I
do want to start putting up photos and stuff though to
yeah,
really showcase what these drones can do, because the ways that the one of the biggest things, especially with my sales reps, right, that work with us, because again, they're all over the US. I can't be everywhere all at once, even though I wish I could. um, they hearing some of their ideas of the people that they're talking to sell the products to, and the people that they mention them to, finding new ideas to apply these things. It's been super cool to get all that information coming in. Like, hey, I met a guy who wants to use it to fly it through massive drainage pipes. That's cool. I wouldn't have thought of doing that, but all right.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the cool thing, and you're not the first person to say that. So I've talked to a couple other drone companies. I have uh, Jason Liu from Flyby Robotics. I did an interview with him. I have another one lined up with Blue Vigil. And they're the guys that I was telling you about that have the tethered drone for construction lighting.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to go on my 124 podcast, but um, it's the same thing. Like they're developing these things, these drones, to serve a certain purpose, but then they're talking. People are finding all these other things that they could do, like you said, go through the sewers and like, what? Okay, you know,
Yeah.
and it's you put it in the hands of the users that they'll. It's kind of like I'm bringing it back to games because it's like the modding community. You can make the
Oh
game
yeah.
and you're like, yep, here it is. And then like the modding community just expands it to such
I mean,
enormous degrees.
that's what Fortnite's done recently. I haven't kept up with Fortnite in years, but apparently it's become less of a game and more of a platform now, and it's blown up again even larger than it already
Oh,
was.
really?
Yeah, so because apparently people are using it to make their own games and their own stuff like that. Like, it's just a platform now, which I thought was kind of cool. But
Yeah. I haven't really kept up with games like that. I mean, that's not like that, but Skyrim was the last one that
Oh yeah.
like people just like
I
exploded
mean,
that. And it's
it's still insanely popular. Like, I
yeah.
mean, they've sold it to everybody, what, 30 times at this point?
Yeah. Yeah,
And I
but
have my own reservations about that, but man, like a good game's a good game.
but
And I
that's,
mean, a good drone is a good drone.
the community is finding uses for stuff, and like they're
Absolutely.
increasing things, and like you never I used to play Destiny, and it's funny, it's not just Destiny that did this, but like you'll have gamers where they'll find some sort of, not glitch, but like the devs will make a game and they're like, oh yeah, you're in this special mission, what are they called, it doesn't matter, but like you're fighting this special boss, this big boss, and it's like this whole big thing. And somebody in the game will find like, oh, if you stand on this rock right here and you crouch and you have this kind of weapon, then you'll be able to just stay here and be safe. And just like, what is it called? There's a term for it, but like, and the devs are like, how the hell did somebody ever figure that
We're
out?
talking about cheesing?
Cheesing, thank
Cheesing
you.
a
God
game?
damn it.
Yeah.
Yes, cheesing. It's been a long time since I've.
It's,
I
it's okay.
You were talking about old man. I've been stuck playing StarCraft 2 co-op
Oh
for.
no.
No, I love it. Here's the thing. I love it. I shouldn't say I'm
Okay.
stuck,
Okay.
but I'm like, it hits me in all the right layers. I'm a star level
Yeah.
now, so like, that's once you get to star, you can't get any higher.
Yeah.
So I like to Sherpa people, and like,
Ah.
like kind of train them, and like if they want it, or just play or whatever. But it hits. What's really good about it is I can't get lost in it. If I do 3 rounds, I know that's 1 hour. So each round is like 20 minutes, and that's a good, like, oh, I need a break. And so once I hit that third round, it's like, if you go for another one, you're really now you're ignoring what you're supposed to be doing. You're not taking a break anyway. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get off on a tangent. What the heck were we talking about? Oh yeah, the community, like finding uses for drones. It ends up going into gaming, but
Well, I mean, let's be real. Like, gaming has kind of embedded itself into everybody, in every generation at this point. Like, everybody games. It's one of those main cultural things that everybody has in common. In some aspect or another, everyone games.
yeah, even if it's
So
on their cell phone and they don't even realize it, like they're just
exactly.
but also I feel like people that are probably going to watch this, for the most part, they're drone pilots or interested in drones. So they're kind of our age. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I don't remember how old you are.
I am 26 years
Oh
old.
yeah, you're just a baby. Nah.
Yeah,
See, I don't know
yeah,
if you can
I
see
know.
it. Can you see the gray in my hair?
I got gray in my hair too. Don't worry.
Oh,
The
okay.
Navy adds 5 years
Oh
to your
yeah,
life.
yeah. No.
I just dye it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been lucky that I don't really have, I shouldn't say lucky, but like I didn't really start, I would have like a couple gray hairs here and there, but it wasn't until I started letting my beard come out a little bit, or let my stubble grow longer than just stubble, that I started to notice, oh, there's a lot of gray right there.
Well, see, you're not at the point where it's all gray. You got that the salt and pepper going. You
Yeah.
got the salt and pepper going.
But even when I'm going to make the all gray look good, man.
Hey, that's the
Yeah.
ultimate goal, right? That's all you can do is make it look good when you're older. You got to embrace it.
Yeah.
You got to embrace the age.
Hey,
sure.
man, it's once you get to a certain age, I feel like there's a certain confidence that comes with it, even with like I'm in this rebuilding phase, or I should say this building phase for 124. So I'm on this, like, I'm not starting from scratch, but I kind of am. I built what I'm building now. I built that at another company. So now I'm just doing it for myself. And it's like being, I don't want to say a kid again, but it's like, oh, I don't have any of that like seniority. I don't have any of that like
because you can
comfort.
storm your own path.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so like you guys get to, you're on the same path, you're on the same thing, and it's nerve-wracking in some ways because like I need to pay the bills,
Oh
And
yeah.
it's like, oh, I have, like, for you, you're like, I have my other job. I can't focus on my thing 100% of the time. But there's that, like, I need to focus more on that. I need to work on that. So,
Absolutely.
it's like trying to find that balance. But tell me more about, so we didn't actually even say what the name of your company is. You want to bring
Oh,
that up?
man, look, the ADHD squirrel brain, that's how it goes. But no, so we are Denshi Repair. That's what we go by. And while I was in the Navy, I was stationed in Japan. Just to give you an idea of the name, right? I was stationed in Japan, and I spent 5 years there, and I loved every minute of Japan. And Japan integrated itself into my life in such a way that I never thought possible. And honestly, in a lot of ways, I Japan feels more like home to me than America does most days. It's interesting because I didn't have culture shock going there, but I did on a massive level coming back.
Yeah.
But no, since it means so much to me, I really wanted the name to be a Japanese name, especially like something that's easy to say, nothing crazy. So Denshi being as that it roughly translates to like electron or electronic,
Mm-hmm.
and just Denshi repair, electronic repair made a lot of sense. And if we ever start working in with some of the people I know in Japan, which ideally I'd like to in the future, then it already has a Japanese name, so it can be propped up easily there.
Oh,
Um,
go ahead.
oh no, no, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, from a branding perspective,
Mhm.
it's really intelligent to have um, something that you can grow into. So, like, right now you're focusing on drones, but you never know what's going to come down the pike, So having that ability to, you're not calling it drone repair or Denshi drone repair. It's like Denshi
Yeah.
repair. So it's like drones are part of the electronic space, and that's what you're
Mhm.
focusing on right now. But having that room for growth is so important, and that's actually a really good thing that a lot of people kind of miss out on. They're like, oh yeah, I do drones. That's what I do. Or like for me, primarily I focus on photos, and because I like to do photos. But I didn't call it 124 photos. I called it 124 productions, so that I can, photos are part of media production, so it's like it kind of works. But that's one of those things that uh, I think helps you to set up for success because it allows you to pivot later.
Yeah.
And that's such an intelligent name, just because it's like it means something to you,
Mhm.
which is actually what my episode's going to be about tonight, if I can get it out tonight. But it's about, like, I was talking about my story about like my branding and like why it means something to me, um and being grounded in that. So if you're having a hard time, if you're like, I don't know, like let's say in a year, like everything's going great, then all of a sudden something goes bad.
Oh yeah.
Having that kind of touchstone to be like, this means something to me. It's not just another company. Even your logo. I mean, we were talking about your logo, and with the, what was it, hexagon, right?
Yeah, it's a hexagon, and on the top, there's a hexagon, and then there's a smaller hexagon in the middle,
Yeah,
and the edges of the inner hexagon, it's split into three different colors, so purple, green, and blue. And me, like I said, me and Deshaun and Eric have all done YouTube or Twitch at some point or another, and it still means a lot to us. So you know, Deshaun's color is purple, mine is green, and Eric's was blue. So, we made it to where it kind of symbolizes the three of us. But no, I agree with what you were saying because, um, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's days where it's really hard. Like, with any business owner, they know that some days there are days that are just super stressful. But it's
yeah.
like, it's again, it's kind of a difference because having your own business, it's stress that you're inviting into your life as opposed to it just kind of happening to you. So
I'm gonna write
it's
that
good
down.
stress.
That's a really good way to put it, because I've been talking about that in stress inviting into life. Yeah. Uh, I've been talking about that, how like it's, I got burnt out so much by, I
Mhm.
was getting paid by the hour and I was getting compensated well, but it was like no matter how hard I worked, even if it was till like 1 o'clock in the morning and I did like a 15-hour day, it
Yeah.
was just getting the work done. And it wasn't like I was saving maybe the relationship for my employer, which is great, but it's like I'd rather have that extra effort be an investment in me or my company, or ultimately me and my family. You know, like we're the ones that, yeah, sorry, I have to work this weekend. We're not going to be able to do what we wanted to. We planned on going to Disneyland, but I can't because of whatever. But it's going to pay off in the long run. Even if it's just like, even if whatever it is, it's like I'm inviting that into my life so that it'll reap benefits later, even if it's just a better relationship with the client, you know?
Yeah, no, I absolutely know where you're coming from, because I mean, when you're able to take ownership of something, and that's something I saw in the military, right? When you're able to take ownership of something, you tend to put your all into it, right? When something, for example, like when I was in the Navy, I had a storeroom that was mine, and I, just like anybody who owns a program in the military that they're responsible for, you know, it becomes your baby, and you want it to prosper and do well. You don't want to just leave it somewhere.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you're able to take care of it and nurture it, because it's the sole thing that you're responsible for. But that's even, whereas that was the military, and some people may have that at the company that they work for. It's different when it's yours, when it's your creation, when it's something that you spent time and effort putting through the processes in your brain of how you're going to go about it, what it really means to you. When when it comes to being a business owner, you just kind of, there's a level of ownership that just can't really be described, as opposed to just running a program at your job. When I was at the Men's Warehouse corporate office, I was in charge of or I would help with Navy weddings, right? Or not Navy weddings, but Disney weddings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people would get formal wear tuxedos for their groom or their groomsmen, right? And that was a program that I took pride in at the time, but it's not like you necessarily get anything out of that because it's not your program,
Yeah.
technically, you know?
Yeah. I feel like even if you build something someplace else,
Mm-hmm.
you can build something from the ground up and you can pour yourself into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the end of the day, it's beholden to the direction that the company decides to go in at some other point. So like in my case, the place that I was at, I built a photography and videography media department within the creative team, and it became this like entity. It was, you know, I was going after these big contracts, and we were getting them, and it was great. Unfortunately, it crumbled after I left. And I
Mm-hmm.
had like set it, I was like a parent trying to like get the people to like like I was leaving, but I gave them, I knew for a while, but like I was trying to get like the foundation was there, and I was trying to like pass it on to my kids, and they
Yeah.
wanted to do it, but at some point the management wasn't really focusing on it. They were focusing on it when I was focusing on it, but then when I wasn't there anymore, nobody really wanted to hold the mantle. So which is going to
Yeah.
happen, but um it's sad to see that. And so it's nice when you have your own thing, and especially you got partners, which that you guys are great together. By the way, I noticed you said it was blue, green, and purple.
Yeah.
You're wearing a blue, green, and purple and red sweatshirt. Is that intentional?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like purple, green, and like darker purple, but
Oh, okay.
I I did wear it for that a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I the way
Because
I'm
with the lighting I had earlier, it looked a bit more blue.
okay.
So
Yeah, it looks from here, it looks like a dark navy blue.
yeah.
Yeah, so but yeah, so let's see. We got a little bit of time left on the clock here. What would you like to talk about? Would you like to keep talking about your drone thing? Would you like to talk about your DJing? Because I mean, we could go in any different
Oh,
direction here.
well, I mean, we've talked about I've talked about the company, Denshi Repair. Honestly, if anybody wants to get in touch with us, then more than welcome to. Because not only are we like working on partnerships with people, because we do want there to be a community involved, right? I love the concept of community involved business,
Hmm.
which is why, again, my sales reps are all over the U.S. because then we can work with communities, especially when we start getting the other drones in a position where we can start selling them. Then which we already have that done, and we just need to get the okay to start doing it. But we can have one of my reps who is in, I don't know, maybe Florida, go talk to their local, police or fire department, and work with them on getting them set up with drones, so that way they can utilize that and make their day-to-day functions easier, and start working with people in the agriculture field all around the US, because ideally, um, like, just embedding yourself in the community, right? If you show that you're somebody that's worth trusting, then people are more likely to interact with you, and not just on a business perspective, but on a personal perspective, as well, which is, it's very important to me. But as far as DJing, oh man, where do I even begin? I picked it up. Yeah.
Before you do, just to tack onto that, why don't you tell people the website?
Oh yeah, it's denshirepair.com. DENSHI repair.com. And
I'll put
I
that in
guess
the description also, so that'll get
yeah, I
linked out.
appreciate it. Yeah. But no, as far as DJing, it's been a fun endeavor. Um I want, I don't have too many extreme desires with it, because I produced music for about a year and a half now, and I learned a lot about that. Ideally, if I ever end up with some free time, I'd like to go to school for music production.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I took up DJing on a whim when I first got out of the Navy. So right around last March, I picked it up. And I've been doing it since. It's been so much fun. I have a great mentor who's taught me a ton. And to kind of repay him for his time and how much it meant to me that he, was willing to teach me, especially for free. What the?
Yeah.
I actually invited him out on an opportunity that I had. I went to Japan, um, for Halloween week. So we were there for about 9 days, and we went to Japan, and I did a couple of shows in Shibuya along with him, which was a ton of fun. Uh, yeah, it's been a really fun endeavor. I normally DJ out here in Minneapolis, but
Is there a big?
uh,
Uh, so I would assume because you're DJing, you're in like a club environment.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to make any assumptions and
Oh no, yeah, I I like the club environment. When I was in Japan, I really fell in love with the way clubs are. But my end goal, right, my ultimate dream, is to own a nightclub, right? And my nightclub, I have some ideas for it, but I want to bring that Shibuya lifestyle, that Japan vibe to America, right? The It's just a completely different environment, and I can't even describe it. Like, it's something that you have to experience. Um like, by the time we left Japan, my buddy was in tears, because he was like, "Man, I don't want to leave. I can't leave." Because there's a certain magic there that you can't really recreate. But I want to do my best to get as close as possible to it.
would you say it's the people and the culture, or like the whole thing? Like you're like the environment is so different, or
It's everything. The people, the culture, the whole country is built on respect, right? That's a major thing. If you're the one that stands out, then you're the nail that gets hit down, right? If Because everybody just it's weird. Everybody just does the right thing. I love I love America because I grew up here, but not everybody just does the right thing.
that's that's true.
um, like with the environment, it's they're the Japanese people tend to be very friendly. Like don't get me wrong, if you're a foreigner, sometimes you might get treated a little differently if you're in certain spots of Japan. Um, because it's just like you're either Japanese or you're not there, right?
Hmm.
And unfortunately, some foreigners have built a pretty crappy reputation for foreigners to have to, overcome.
Well,
Um,
yeah, Americans don't have the best reputation worldwide as it is. So
that's true, but
especially
especially,
especially influencers doing like trying to take photos in places that they're not
oh man,
respecting
don't
things
even
that they should be respecting. Um, but we don't have to
Logan,
get into
Logan,
that. But
Logan. I
yeah.
won't say last name, but no, no, the for example, when it comes to I've never considered myself a big architecture guy. I grew up in Louisiana,
Hmm.
right? So, you see stuff like when you go to New Orleans, you see like the French Quarter and stuff. You see different kinds of architecture all throughout the world that are interesting. But there's just something about Japanese architecture that really blows my mind because not only do they have their own like traditionally Japanese style in most places when they build their buildings and some modern places as well, but no matter where you go, there's this certain oneness with nature that they have in the way that they lay out their cities because of course they don't just terraform every aspect of it. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure they have in places, but um like their houses are built up along the mountainsides and they nature is surrounding you in every aspect. If you take a left here, then suddenly you're at this shrine that is embedded in the trees and stuff that you
That's
maybe
cool.
wouldn't have found otherwise. And it's this level of beauty that you can find anywhere you go, no matter what street you go down, no matter, it, anytime you pop up anywhere, there's something beautiful to behold, and there's something amazing about that. That don't get me wrong, America has that too in places, but there's just again the way that they embed themselves into their environment. It, it
Hmm.
it it really sticks out to me as something that's more outstanding. Um,
I feel like America is getting better about that in general, but for most of the cities and everything that were already developed, it was
mhm.
just let's mow it all down and like this is ours now, and they just like paved over everything. And like
Yeah.
Boston actually is very beautiful.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of old architecture here. I mean, it's stuff that was from the 1600s, um,
Mhm.
and it's very impressive and very just inspiring to be around if you like the history of it. The
Oh yeah.
architecture can be super cool, especially there's spots where like we have the old State House, which is where the Boston Massacre happened, and that's
Mhm.
still there. They've actually turned it into a train stop, into a subway stop. So underneath,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so underneath you actually come out of it. But you have this little like 2-story building. It looks almost like a church, like a brick church. And then all around it, it has the skyscrapers. So we have what I'm kind of envisioning, like what you're talking about. You turn down the street and you have this
Mhm.
shrine that's like, whoa, that's it's right there in the tree or in the side of the mountain or whatever. It's not to
Yeah.
the degree like what you're talking about, but that that character, I can that's the way I can relate to it because I've never been over to Japan, but now you're making me want to go over there. Um,
It's an experience. It's definitely worthwhile.
yeah,
I've yet to have somebody go to Japan and say that they didn't like it in some way or another. Like, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of people in the military who are like, I hate being here in Japan, but that's because they probably wanted to go to like Florida
yeah,
for their station,
yeah.
their duty station instead. But no, even with most people, like there's just again, there's just a magic that I can't really explain. They have a word for it. There's a word in Japanese that is like they you ever watch any of the Ghibli films? Studio Ghibli. Like, have you ever seen like Ponyo or Spirited Away or any of
I've
that?
heard of Spirited Away, but I haven't
Yeah.
watched it.
Well, they do this thing often in those films, and it happens a lot in anime as well, where there's like they show these very ambient backgrounds, right? It's just scenery, and it whether there's music playing or it's just complete silence. There's a word for it in Japanese. I'm blanking on it, but it just means to observe beauty in a silent way. Um, and it's normally used to refer to like nature or just the way that
Hmm.
Japan's landscape typically is. And if I can remember it, I'll show you. But uh, it's that's just that's the best way to explain it. It's you're able to observe beauty in a completely different way there that I've never been able to anywhere else.
Yeah, I know that
So,
there was a study that came out like a year or so ago. And I
mhm,
walk through the woods every single day. I'm lucky. I have woods around me within walking. It's a couple minutes down the street, and I have different directions I could go in different woods. And so I'm blessed with that, especially having been in California where I didn't have that at all.
mhm,
But I walk my dog through the woods every day, so it's a couple times a day, and there's a natural healing that happens in the woods, in the
mhm,
forest, and we're not going to get too far into it, but um, the reason why I bring this up is because there was a study from Japan that had talked is I don't remember what they called it, but I'm going to say it was the ancient art of, and I'm using quotes in there, walking through the woods. But they said that there's a term, I don't remember what it was, but it's like therapy that the folks
mhm.
in Japan have been doing forever, because they realize this kind of like what you're talking about, of that like enjoying nature in silence, and that like the therapy of walking through woods is there's actually a um, certain trees, deciduous trees, will
Mhm,
release like they have chemicals that or not hormones, whatever they're called, that
mhm,
actually reduce the blood pressure of human beings. Whereas I guess if I remember correctly, the fir trees, the evergreens, the ones that have the pine needles, um,
mhm.
or the ones that have needles, not necessarily pine needles, um, those will actually increase your stress response.
Huh.
But there's like a biochemical response that happens. But even before they've known this, this Japan study that they were talking about, it's just something that's ingrained in the civilization, that's something that they do. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just something
It's
they've done for so long, and so they have that kind of meditation just built in,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. For example, I went to a few years back, I went to the Aokigahara forest, which unfortunately is known as the Japanese suicide forest, but
Oh.
um the as somber as the name is, it's absolutely stunning there. It's so beautiful because the all around the ground at the base of the mountain, you're gonna see like lava rocks everywhere, right? Or at least the areas of the forest that I was in, like where I walked in, there was lava rocks everywhere. And you have the roots of the trees climbing over and through the lava rocks, and you have the moss covering everything here and there,
Mm-hmm.
making this really nice, uh, this very vibrant green that just crawls across this dark gray slash black expanse of lava rocks. And the terrain isn't flat, of course, so it's just you look straight ahead and there's just green as far as the eye can see. And as you walk through it, there was this moment where I just realized it's completely silent here. And like, I wasn't hearing birds, I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
hearing squirrels running around or any kind of, I wasn't hearing any animals at all. And apparently there's a legend for that, because Mount Fuji used to be seen as a god, right? And the the legend is just that animals would typically be silent for the god that was Mount Fuji, as to not disrespect or upset them. So it was cool just to find that out, of course. But no, it was. it was on a completely different level. Plus, I went through the ice caves that were there, which were pretty cool. I love
Oh
going through
yeah,
caves, so that was pretty nice.
that's gonna be epic.
Yeah.
I've only experienced that perfect quiet in the woods once, and it
Mhm.
freaked me out because like we were walking and it was new woods. It was up in the heart of New Hampshire, and we were coming back
Mhm.
home, and I was like, oh, they have a trail over here. Let's just pull over. So we pulled over for a little bit. We walked like 10 minutes into the woods, and then I realized there's not one sound. There's not a cricket. There's not a bird. I don't hear the wind. I don't even hear the rustle in the trees or anything. And I actually started freaking out a little bit. Like I was like, no, keep on going. But there's that like, is there a Wendigo out there or something? Like what's going on? Um, but
uh,
which is funny because I was trying to enjoy it because I've never
mhm.
had that like utter silence. There's always some sort of white noise. And it was just
Mhm.
like I couldn't hear anything. It was like I had gone deaf. I could hear myself walking though. So I was like, okay, well, I haven't, but I can only imagine, especially because I don't know exactly what kind of trees they have, but they're going to be exotic to us in that they're
Yeah.
different. So
I
even,
mean, they're massive. Like
yeah,
they're so tall. Like you look up and they're just
yeah.
such big
Well,
trees.
that, and you have the roots, like you said, like kind of crawling around, which we do have a lot
Mhm.
of that too, depending on where we're at. Actually, San Diego, I think, actually had some Japanese trees down in the San Diego Zoo that
Hmm.
might be similar to what you're talking about. They were massive trees, and they just like the trunks were enormous and the roots were enormous, and they just were like,
Mhm.
they were that kind of like grayish color. The bark was like a grayish color, and it was just like almost a flat bark. It wasn't like the rough bark that you think of typically with a tree.
Yeah.
It was like a nice smooth thing. So anyway, I could talk about trees all day. Um, I have a library of field guide to trees. I got one of the best books that I ever read. Now I'm getting really off topic. The Hidden Life of Trees. This is a great book. I'm not sponsored or anything by them, but this was such a good book that teaches you all about.
Oh, here we go. I could show you. Um, yeah, I guess. Can I do this? I can share my screen. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, go for it. I'll have
Uh,
to. You let me know when you
Here we
do.
go.
I'll have to authorize
I did
it.
it right here.
Okay,
I did
cool.
it right here. I
There you
just
go.
did a quick little Google search. Yeah, no, this is what the trees pretty
Oh
much
yeah,
look like
yeah.
everywhere,
Okay.
and it's so pretty. Like it's just an entirely different experience to be there looking at
Oh
it.
yeah.
Right.
So is that the first time that you've seen forests like that?
For the most part, yeah. It's like don't get me wrong. Growing up, I spent a lot of time. Um, I spent a lot of time going through the woods, but I lived in like Louisiana, and if I went into the woods, I was in the swamp,
Yeah.
right? And then I lived in Illinois for a good while, and Illinois is Illinois, and Illinois does what Illinois does. Um,
Yeah.
Needless to say, I don't really care for Illinois that much, but um, no. And then I lived in Texas, and I spent a lot of time going through the woods there. Like the Texas probably was the closest I got to anything like this.
Yeah.
And then I when I got out of the Navy, I drove all the way from Arizona up to Minnesota, and there's a lot to see, but nothing like this.
Yeah.
There's been nothing I've experienced quite like that.
So if you ever come out to New England, I got a treat for you. So like we'll go through
Yeah.
um we have similar to that. I based on those pictures. I mean if I was there, I might be able to say so like, "Whoa, we have nothing like this." But in
Mhm.
like July or August, after like the end of June, like pretty much all of our leaves have popped out, and so we have moss everywhere.
Mhm.
And that's part of the thing that I love about it. We have just what you were showing, just such like a vibrancy to everywhere you're looking. That the the green almost hurts your eyes,
Yes.
and it's so intense, and it's funny. So last year, I had several people, 4 different people coming out from California. And we were in the worst drought that we've ever had, or at least I think it's the worst drought we've ever had on record, because they actually had to add a level of drought to our drought meter.
Oh wow.
But I lived in California for 10 years, so that's like just entering the California drought level.
Yeah.
And so I had people coming from California. We had such a bad drought, and everything was still green. Nothing really got burnt out. For the most part. I mean, some people's grasses were, but that's pretty typical for summers.
Yeah.
But we still had lots of water and everything. I was bringing people through, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. We don't have, the water level's real low. And they're like, shut up. Because like we're driving through and like everything's still lush and green. But our water levels were like, you saw areas of the basins that you'd never see. But anyway, so if you ever come out, you let me know, because I'll bring you through the woods.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out for sure then, because that sounds like it'd be an experience and a half.
I have 10 minutes from here. I have a really nice set of woods that I'll go to, and it starts with this big waterfall. I'll send you some pictures or a little video, because I go up there every once in a while. I actually have a short that I did last year on my YouTube channel. That was, I think I was just talking about it in like being in New England or something. I was just loving where I was at, and like the waterfall's frozen. So,
oh, that's cool.
But speaking of 10 minutes, we got about 10 minutes left on this recording time. So, not that I want to cut it short, because you and I think, could talk all day.
Oh yeah, I could do it all day, every day. It doesn't matter where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'll sit here and talk someone's ear off straight into the grave.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to end up seeing you tomorrow anyway. You and your guys. So, just, we can chat then. And, I don't know, man. I'll have you on again, I'm sure. 'Cause, this is why I'm doing the channel. This like sense of community, like you were talking about, and just like jiving with people and just having cool conversations.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I can talk to anyone from any background. I've lived in so many different backgrounds growing up that I can get along with basically anybody. So just having good conversation is probably my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. It's well, you said you have to catch up. So I don't know if you've gotten to the art of conversation video that I was doing. I think that's the one where I was shaving. I started shaving, and then I got into it later. But the ability to have a conversation and to hold a conversation is so underrated by people. And even the I feel, and I think I touched on this in that video, where I could Google something. If like on Reddit, there's times where on Reddit, like someone says something and I can Google it. I can find out the answer in 2 seconds. Like, oh, that's what that means. Okay. But by asking somebody else, like if you're talking about it, then that opens up the door of shared interests and like conversing, and like, I'll get the answer on Google, but I'm not going to get the extra context or the extra story that got to that point. Like, and that's something that's lacking a lot.
In a world where social media plays such a major part of everybody's lives now, people in general are tending to feel lonelier and lonelier, or more and more lonely, rather, if I want to say that grammatically correct. But as people start to feel more and more lonely, really the only way to resolve that is proper communication and opening up a door for people to have that proper communication. So it, again, like you were saying, gift of the gab, right? It's the, if you can Google, you could probably throw me any topic and I'll talk about it. I may not even know about it, but I'll at least open an opportunity for you to tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, and even if I'm similar in that, like, if I don't know it, I mean, I try not to BS anybody. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm a heart surgeon, but I like to, if I don't know, then it's kind of like a good thought experiment of like, I don't know, but you know, and you start to think about it and like
Mhm.
kind of probe based off of your own experiences. Like, well, I would think that it might be completely wrong, but
Yeah.
the exercise of actually conversing about something, it opens up so much like possibility to just more thought
Mhm.
and deeper thought and introspection, which is so powerful. And I
Yeah.
feel like, and we should add this to the list of stuff to talk about next time, because it's the ability to have that, to look inside yourself and like have that conversation, and then just like you see things that you didn't realize. It's like when you're teaching something, that's when you realize the stuff you don't know that you thought you knew. You know, you might ask me something about ISO and or photography, and I'll be like, oh yeah, but I can't explain to you why. I just like know it. It's like, well, why don't I know that? Or like, you know, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I know exactly what you're saying, like, and I'll try and make this short, but, you know, while I spent most of my time in Shibuya when I was in Japan, right? And that's kind of like where most foreigners meet up, is Tokyo Shibuya area, right? It's not in Tokyo, it's like it's a separate portion from Tokyo. I
Mhm.
don't like Tokyo that much, so I stayed in Shibuya where City was. But no, the the foreigner network there is very expansive, but it's weird because every foreigner knows each other.
Mm.
So I have friends that are from like Hong Kong, Ireland, from Tahiti, all these different people from different walks of life, and they all have different experiences and different opinions on certain things. And I think that's a big thing. If you're willing to be open to conversation, even if you don't agree with somebody's opinion or somebody's beliefs, being able to be open to the conversation and try and understand them for where from where they're from and their background and their, you know, just how they think the way they do, that I think being open to those perspectives is very important in not even just personal growth, but again, you never know where anybody's going to be at some point or another, and you know, maybe opening yourself up to that perspective can change your own and help you excel more than you thought you ever would. So,
Perfectly said. I think that's a good way to end it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very apt. Yeah. Well, hey man, we'll definitely chat again. I mean, I know we'll chat offline, obviously, but I feel like this would be. I'd love to have you on again for conversation about conversation, even. You know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so if people want to get in touch with you over at Denshi Repair, they can do
Mhm.
that, and then you'll be building up your socials at some point in time as things get built. But that information will be on the website, I imagine. Yeah,
Yes.
so that's a really good place for them to reach you. Do you have a place that they can see your DJing stuff?
Oh, I mean, I don't really post much on there anymore. I'm trying to get back into the back onto YouTube and Twitch and all of that now
Mm-hmm.
that I've got my setup again and I'm not in the military anymore.
Yeah.
But it should be, yeah, it's under Cool Keenan, KoolKeanen.
Okay.
Yeah. I've done like gaming, I've done little vlog stuff, some more emotional videos on some particular topics. I'm a very open book kind of person.
Yeah. Okay. I'll ask you again for that, but offline there, and I'll just make sure that I uh,
Yeah.
link that in there. So, all right, man. We're just under the wire, so that's good. That makes it. Um,
Yeah.
well, I
I
appreciate.
appreciate you. Oh, I was gonna say I
Oh,
appreciate you having me on. Thanks for letting me come here and talk for a little bit.
dude, I told you it's been almost a year, and I've wanted to have you on, and it's been just the logistics of it, and it's I'm so glad that because honestly, like it's whatever platform I do have, I want to like, you reached out when you didn't have to, and like you went kind of like extra miles, and you really didn't have to do that. So it's like, hey, I want to do whatever I can, especially once you said that you were starting your own business. I'm like, yeah, whatever platform I can give them, you know. So
I appreciate it, man. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk again, and then I'll link everything in the description, and people can reach out to you, and then you can update me if any of that stuff changes, and I'll update the video.
Will do. I mean, you have a good rest of your day or night, and everybody else, you too.
Thanks, man.